Hey everyone, welcome back to Wait It Gets Better. This is episode 45, and today's episode will focus on suicide awareness. Now, I have my own stories that I can help the next person in their own journey when it comes to suicide awareness, which I will share in a bit. But my reasoning for being so passionate about suicide prevention is because I was once someone who didn't think that they would live to see the next day. And I'm here sharing my message that it does get better. I used to self-harm when I was, like, 13 years old, and it carried into my senior year of high school, where it was the worst of my suicidal depression when I was 18 because my brain was it was growing. Because when you're 18, your brain kinda, like, makes a shift, and, like, the chemistry kind of, and I have shared before that my I was wrongly diagnosed with ADD prior to my mental break, my psychosis when I was 18, but I was finally diagnosed with bipolar disorder and, but I'm here to share my message, that it's like I said, like, it does get better. Like, I used to, be have suicidal depression, and I've told the story before, but, I think that it's good to share stories with people. Even though I've shared it before, it's good to share it again. So basically, like I said, I was misdiagnosed with ADD for so many years, and it was very detrimental because my brain chemistry was not being treated for the proper mental illness, which was bipolar disorder ultimately when I ultimately had my psychosis, and it was causing me to be depressive and suicidal. So, yes, I was a person that was attempting suicide many times in my teen years, and I was living in an environment where I didn't get along with my parents and my family, and I was being made fun of for my weight in school, and I had friends that were terrible to me, and I just wasn't a happy person. I was also not only was I being made fun of in school, I was also doing the making fun of towards people. I wasn't necessarily a victim. I'll never claim to be a victim in my teenage years because like I said, I'll always say that when you're a teenager, it is like a balancing act of like, okay, so people are projecting, like teenagers project on each other. So they have a horrible home life, so they're gonna project on the next person. And because that person's not happy because they have somebody picking on them, they're gonna project on other people. And it's just like a cycle that I think a lot of mental health things need to be formed in schools to teach kids about that and like to really tackle what's really going on when it comes to bullying. And like I said, I'm not a victim when it comes to that, but I did have my own issues that were causing me to be depressive and suicidal. And like I said, I wasn't living a happy life in my teen years, so I thought my only way out of a temporary feeling was taking permanent action. Now I'm a 33-year-old and I'm here to tell you it gets better. Maybe not today, but it will. Just wait and hold on. If I would have ended my life at 18, I would have never had the fulfilling relationships I now have with my two beautiful nieces. I would have never accomplished the things that I did. And when you constantly reassure yourself that it will get better and I need to hang on, there is a way out of this hell. You will be happy to see where life can take you a year later, a few years later. You just need to hold on, I promise you. And you haven't done things yet or you haven't met the people that want to love you yet. So hang on. Please wait. It gets better. I promise you. I just want to remind you, self-harm is not a weakness. It's a sign that someone is carrying more pain than they know how to express. Be the person who listens, not the one who judges. So that's something I just saw and I wanted to share that. I didn't know where to place it within my information that I'm going to share next. I'm going to dive right into the research next. Suicide awareness and mental health are deeply important topics. It is Suicide Awareness Month. Um, and it's powerful to focus on them, especially when you have a platform that you're able to share your story and give information to help the next person. Now, awareness that saves lives. Talking openly about suicide helps reduce the stigma and encourages people to seek help. Changes in a mood, withdrawal, hopelessness, giving away possessions, and talking about death can be telltale signs that someone is struggling. And listen without judgment, validate feelings. That's my biggest thing is validate people's feelings and encourage professional support and check in regularly. That was one thing that I always say, like you need to check in on your people. because someone can be sitting there smiling in your face. I've seen it many times when it comes to like you hear about a lot of people in society, like they'll be the happiest, most beautiful person living a great life, and they will take their own life. And I did actually, I want to share this. I went to a Jay-Z concert years ago, and he was performing his song he did with Linkin Park, and he was speaking on Chester Bennington. And he said a nice little speech in the beginning before he performed the song, where he said, he regrets not checking in on Chester as much as he could have. And he said, he was a great person. And he said he was on top of the world, and you can be on top of the world, you know, accomplishing such great things, but it's your mental health that really needs to be, checked in on, or it needs to be, it's just not an easy thing to say, because you can, like you said, you can be on top of the world, and just it's that one thing that you know, makes you wanna take your own life, and it's sad, and this is why I'm trying to spread awareness with today's episode. So, and also mental health, normalize conversations. Just like physical health, mental health deserves care and attention. Self-care, rest, movement, boundaries, and mindfulness aren't luxuries, they're necessities, 100%. And support system, therapy, peer support groups, hotlines, and trusted friends can make a huge difference. And here are some resources, and I'll share more towards the end. As I lay out these episodes, I'm adding more resources to these episodes. The 988 suicide crisis text line. Call or text 988 for immediate support. Crisis text line, text home to 741 to connect with a counselor. And NAMI helpline, excuse me, guys. I always speak, this is me, just an amateur, just doing these episodes, and I misspeak sometimes, or I say the wrong thing, or like, I'm just whatever. So the NAMI helpline is 1-800-950-NAMI. Let me NAMI helpline. I'm sorry, it gives me the lettered number. Let me look up the actual number. I'm sorry, guys. The NAMI helpline, because that's not gonna help you. Like, what do you wanna call the helpline? The letters being spelled out for you are not gonna help when you are in a crisis. So okay, here's the number. The NAMI helpline number. Let's look it up. I'm looking it up right now. NAMI helpline number. Um, core text. No, this is 988. I'm sorry, guys. Follow along with me as I'm trying to. Okay, the number is this is the NAMI helpline if you were in crisis and you need help. It is 800-950-6264. I'm gonna repeat that. It's 800-950-6264. Now let me go back to my notes. Okay, so here's some statistics on suicide that I found. Apparently, what am I talking about? Girl, get it together. Sorry, guys. Approximately 727,000 people die by suicide globally each year, according to the World Health Organization. In reality, this figure may be significantly understated due to underreporting. Some studies estimate the true number could exceed 1 million suicides per year. Suicide ranks as the third leading cause of death among individuals aged 15 to 29 worldwide, and a notable 73% of global suicides occur in low and middle income countries, and the ratio of suicide attempts completed suicides is estimated to be about around 20 to 1. And here are the US suicide statistics in 2023. Over 49,000 Americans die by suicide in 2023, approximately one person every 11 minutes. The age adjusted suicide rate in the US for 2023 is around 14.1 per 100,000 people, a level not seen since 1941. And men accounted for nearly 80% of suicide deaths, and their suicide rate was almost four times higher than that of women. And firearms were the most frequently used method involved in over 50% of suicide deaths. Demographic variation, older adults, especially those aged 85 and older, had the highest suicide rates, followed by ages 75 to 84. In contrast, among younger age groups, 15 to 24, rates have significantly declined. And by race, ethnicity, non Hispanic, American Indian, Alaska Native, and non Hispanic white populations had the highest rates. And other insights, the LGBTQ plus youth, the 2023 Youth Risk Behavior Survey revealed stark disparities. 41% of the LGBTQ plus teens reported suicidal thoughts. 32% made suicide plans and 20% attempted suicide. Here's some gender patterns. Men die by suicide far more often, even though women tend to report more suicidal thoughts or attempts. This is known as the gender paradox of suicide. And the highest national suicide rate, Lesotho, I don't know if I'm saying that properly, has the highest recorded suicide rate in the world, 87.5 suicides per 100,000 people. This is from 2019. And let me give you some facts about some well-known public figures that have spoken out about their experiences with suicide ideation. And like I said, I always share this. Not only am I sharing my story with suicide ideation and the things that I've overcome in my life, but I want to share some people that I'm sure you look up to. Like the first one, I know I have loved this person since I was a kid. I used to watch WWE when I was a little girl with my nana who passed away when I was 12. And that was somebody who her death was the catalyst to my mental health struggle. And it was also the catalyst to me getting the help from the beginning of my mental health journey. And she loved Dwayne The Rock Johnson. I loved him too. She thought he was the cutest thing. She always spoke about him. She had the biggest crush on him because around the time that I was watching wrestling, it was when The Rock was on it. It was Stone Cold Steve Austin. It was the Hardy Brothers, the Hardy Boys. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong. It was like Trish Stratus. It was the Undertaker, it was Mick Foley. I actually met Mick Foley. He had a children's book that he came out with that I went with my nana to. I think it was Borders or it was one of those Barnes& and Noble, one of those bookstores. We got a book signed and she thought it was like it was the best thing ever, Mick Foley. Okay, so let's dive into the performers and the actors that have struggled with suicide ideation. So we have Dwayne The Rock Johnson, love him. Ye excuse me. He has shared that he experienced depression and suicidal thoughts in his 20s after his football career ended. Lady Gaga, love her. I always say you can never make me hate that woman. She is just incredible. Um, Lady Gaga, she has spoken about experiencing suicidal ideation linked to trauma and PTSD. Demi Lovato, love her. I've seen her in concert. She's extremely talented. She genuinely has a great voice. She has been very open about struggles with addiction, bipolar disorder, and suicidal thoughts. See, every time I do episodes, I mention her a lot. I never knew she had bipolar disorder. I gotta look more into that. I feel like I would love to see what she has to say about having bipolar disorder because 'cause I've always sort of just looked up to now as an adult. Because as a kid, there wasn't a lot of representation with bipolar people, so I always sort of was like, "Oh, not Lady Gaga, excuse me, um, Selena Gomez." I'm like, "Oh my god, I love her because she speaks out about it, and she speaks so openly about it." But now that Demi Lovato, now that I know, I gotta look more into that because I actually really like her. Catherine Zeta-Jones, I've known this, and she's spoken about it, but I was a long time ago, and I didn't really think much of it, but she's such a beautiful woman. She has talked about her bipolar disorder and periods of despair. I think I remember her talking about it when I was, like, a kid, and I think, from what I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, around the time that she came out speaking about it, there was a lot of stigma surrounding mental health, so she was harshly judged for having bipolar disorder by society, which is horrible, but she's a beautiful woman. You see her acting in Wednesday, and she's Morticia Addams, and she's so beautiful, like, oh my god, such a big fan of her. Jim Carrey has acknowledged severe depression and thoughts of ending his life. He's another one. Oh, and I've spoken previously about when it comes to being creative and talented and having mental illness. A lot of these people that I've spoken about, they are known in their fields as the top and most talented people, and it's like it makes you think there's a correlation between mental health and mental illness when it comes to talent and creativeness and these people in these fields. Let's talk about musicians. We have Logic. He wrote a song 1-800-273-8255, inspired by his own struggles with suicidal thoughts and the importance of seeking help. Pete Wentz from Fall Out Boy reveals he attempted suicide in 2005 and later sought treatment. Shawn Mendes has spoken about anxiety and dark thoughts, including suicide ideation. Mariah Carey, the Queen. I call her the Queen of Christmas. I love her. And I love just sitting in my room late at night, opening my windows and singing "Always Be My Baby." I just oh my god, she's amazing. She is such a gem. Sorry, let me stop kissing her ass. Um, Mariah Carey opened up about having suicidal thoughts during her struggles with I didn't know she had bipolar disorder. Oh my god, now she's another one that I have to really look into so I can just, like, really sing her praise. I always will sing her praises. Public figures, Chrissy Teigen. She has talked about suicide ideation after online bullying and postpartum depression. Meghan Markle. She reveals in an interview that she had suicidal thoughts during her time working as a royal. Now, I want to say one thing about Meghan Markle. I genuinely like her, and I think society says such harsh things about her. I genuinely really I think she's a really cool person. I like her. I don't get the hate. There's a lot of you know what I have to say? There's a lot of celebrities that the public just all of a sudden just decided they didn't like Katy Perry's another one. I don't know why people harshly criticize her, Meghan Markle. Like, it's horrible. And then we have Michael Phelps. I was such a huge fan of him during his Olympic run. He has been candid about depression and his suicidal thoughts after retiring from competitive swimming. Now, I do remember my mom telling me a long time ago that he spoke openly about, like, him having ADHD and how his mom got him into swimming when it came to his ADHD because it took that his, like, high-strung behavior and it put it into, like, a focus, and he became one of the most decorated swimmers of all time. So I shared that story because it does revolve around mental health, and I think it is such a smart thing to do when you have a child with certain mental illnesses that you look at certain aspects of that mental illness and you're like, "Okay, what can I do to really hone my child in?" So his mom got him into swimming and look at the outcome of that. So I'm glad I shared that. So celebrities share these struggles. It normalizes the conversation about mental health and it shows that suicidal thoughts can affect anyone. Um, Let me give you guys some affirmations. I always say it's my favorite thing. Um, Hope and healing. This moment will not last forever. Better days are ahead. I am stronger than my darkest thoughts. Even in pain, I'm moving toward healing. There is a reason I'm here, even if I can't see it yet. I think I wish I would have known that when I was like 18, because I was always just so willing to just permanently take care of my depression and rid myself from this life. But I'm glad I stayed. I'm glad I stayed, and I promise you it does get better. And I have to say my whole "it gets better" spiel, it really derived from when I was 15 years old. I was going to a Catholic school that I was forced to go to. I wasn't really happy about it because I missed my friends, um, back in public school, and I had a counselor because I was so suicidal, I wasn't happy, and I was being picked on in school, and I just remember I had a counselor, I don't know if she's still there, it was back in 2006, 2007-ish time. She told me, she's like, "No, you gotta just stay, it gets better." And that always stood in the back of my mind, it gets better. So as I was an adult and I was creating, the merch and the things that I wanted to create for my business, it gets better was one thing that just is something that I wanted to really putting out there in the world. So my business transformed from selling candles with, selling candles to selling self affirmation merch. So let's get back into the affirmations. Even in pain, I'm moving toward healing. There is a reason I'm here, even if I can't see it yet. My favorite, it gets better. Just hold on. My life has value and meaning. I deserve to be here to breathe, to live, and to be loved. I'm worthy of support, compassion, and care. And my story is not over. And connection and support. I'm not alone. Help and love are within reach. It's okay to ask for help. Reaching out is a sign of strength. There are people who want me here and who would miss me deeply. My voice matters and my existence makes a difference. Now let me give you some resources. Immediate help in the US, 988 Suicide Crisis Lifeline. I always share this and I'll share it again at the end. Dial or text 988 for free confidential support 24/7. The crisis text line, text home to 741-741 to connect to a trained crisis counselor. The Trevor Project for the LGBTQ youth. Call 1-866-488-7386 or text START to 678-678. The Veterans Crisis Line, dial 988 and then press 1 or text 838-255. The international resources, Befrienders Worldwide, befrienders.org connects to helplines around the world. The Lifeline Australia, 13 11 14. Samaritans UK and Ireland, 11 6 123 or 116 123 or Samaritans.org and Talk Suicide Canada. The number is 1-833-456-4566 or text 45645. Mental health support organizations, you have NAMI. It's the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI.org. It's peer support, education, and resources. We have the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, AFSP.org. It is research awareness campaigns and survivor support. We have Mental Health America, MHAN. Oh, I'm sorry. What am I thinking? Mental Health America, MHAnational.org. I'm going to read that again. Mental Health America, the website is MHAnational.org for screenings, resources, and advocacy. And for survivors of loss, I've shared in previous episodes these resources, but I'll obviously share them again. Alliance of Hope, it's allianceofhope.org. Support for suicide loss survivors, and AFSP, Healing Conversations, peer-led support for those grieving suicide loss. And let me just give you this reminder, you are never alone. Asking for help is a sign of courage, not weakness. Healing is possible and support is out there. Always remember that, you guys. Um, now, this is my adv this is research's advice, and I'm gonna talk along when I read things, I like to talk along, so when I read the research, I like to give my input to what I just read. I'm gonna do that. Okay, so here's what you can do to support somebody who may be suicidal. It can feel very overwhelming, but your presence and care truly can save a life, 100%. Start with listening and empathy. Be direct but gentle. It's okay to ask, are you thinking about suicide? Research shows asking doesn't put the idea in their head. Listening without judgment. Let them share their feelings without trying to immediately fix them. I had a friend when I was 18. I will always share this story. I would tell him all the time how I was feeling suicidal. I would tell him I would self-harm, and he just was like, "You're just looking for attention. You're an attention seeker. I told you about this friend, right?" He's like, "I can't be your friend. You're so negative." And he left me at a time I was most vulnerable. And I'll never forget that person. He was horrible. His name was Anthony. He was terrible. But you know what? I hope life treated him well. I hope that, because we were 18 at the time, I hope he learned from how he treated me as a friend and he's not that way towards other people. I hope he grew up since then. And I wish him well, but like I said, it was terrible at the time. He was terrible. Okay, validate their pain. Say things like that sounds really hard. I'm glad you told me that. Offer support, not solutions. Stay calm and patient. Even if what they share is scary, your steady presence helps. Avoid minimizing. Don't say it's not that bad or you'll get over it. Definitely, you need to validate somebody's feelings. If they're telling you they're depressed, don't sit there and tell, "Oh, it's not that bad," or don't try to one up them. Well, your struggle is not that bad because this is what I'm going through. Others have it worse. Don't ever tell somebody struggling with suicide ideation that somebody has it worse, so they need to buck up or get over it. Encourage professional help. Offer to help them find a therapist. Call a crisis line or make an appointment and ensure safety. Remove immediate dangers. If possible, reduce access to means. Stay with them if you believe they're in imminent risk. Don't. Reaching out when you're in that dark place can feel scary, but it's one of the most important steps towards safety and healing. Let me give you some ways to ask for help. If you are somebody who's like, I want to ask for help, but how do I go about it without people thinking I'm crazy or without people just judging me? So here's what you can say. If words feel heavy, keep it simple. You could say, I'm not okay and I need help. Or you could say, I've been having thoughts of suicide. Can you sit with me? Or you could say, I don't know what to do, but I need someone to listen. Or say, I don't feel safe with my thoughts right now. You don't have to explain everything, just opening the door is enough. And who you can reach out to, trusted people, a friend, family, partner, a mentor, mental health professionals, a therapist, a doctor, a counselor, the crisis lines, the 988 suicide line, call or text 988 24/7 for a free confidential text. The crisis text line, you can text home to 741-741 or LGBTQIA plus support, the Trevor Project, you can call 1-866-488-7386 or text START to 678-678. And outside the US, Befrienders Worldwide, it lists international hotlines and other ways to reach out. Write it down. If saying it feels impossible, text, DM, or write a note. You have notes in your phone. Use a code word. Some people create a phrase, I need to talk now, that signals a friend they need urgent support. Or go somewhere safe. ERs, urgent care, or mental health centers that are places where you can say, I'm suicidal and I need help. And remember, asking for help is a sign of strength, not a weakness. You do not have to carry this alone. And when they feel overwhelming, your thoughts, I looked up some techniques that can sometimes create enough space to breathe and get through the storm. Because sometimes some people, they want to reach out, but they don't have people to reach out to. So here are some grounding techniques and breathing techniques. So box breathing, inhale 4 counts, hold 4, exhale 4, hold 4, and repeat until it feels calm. You feel calmer. Now, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. Name 5 things you see, 4 you feel, 3 you hear, 2 you smell, and 1 you taste, and bring you back to the present. And hand over heart. Place your hand on your chest, breathe deeply, and say, I'm safe in this moment. Some gentle distractions. Listen to calming music or nature sounds. I always said listening to music is the most healing thing ever. And I do remember when I was going through my suicidal phase when I was a teen, To Write Love on Her Arms, such a great, initiative. At the time I was a teenager, Paramore, the band, was there, they were promoting it, and I will say it is so good to listen to music in general when it comes to if you're suicidal and you feel like you need, like, to tune out the world, you can sit in your room, put your headphones on, listen to music, and just listen to music that makes you happy or listen to bands that you love. For me, specifically, when I was a teen, it was Lady Gaga, and I've spoken about this before. When at the time I was going through my suicidal depressive phase, she was consistent with putting music out, and every single week it was something she was putting out for her Monster Ball tour I went to go see. It was my graduation present that year. And I actually saw her in June of that year. In the beginning of that year is when my struggle was so so significant. And I just remember, like, during that whole year in 2010, 2009 to 2010, I just remember every day she would come out, or every other day, it would be something coming out with her, something new regarding her. It wasn't just necessarily music, but I just remember she was my reason for hanging on, because it'd be like, okay, Lady Gaga's dropping a new music video this Friday. And I'd be like, okay, that gave me a reason to hang on. So her music technically, and I'll always say this, her music technically saved me. So like I said, listening to music and nature sounds will help you. Wrap yourself up in a blanket and hold something soft. Watch a comforting show or a video that makes you feel safe. Write or draw what you're feeling. Sometimes putting it on paper eases the intensity. Definitely, if you're somebody who can draw really, really well, or even if you don't draw well, just draw and doodle. And maybe you can get yourself into drawing by just simply like learning to do all the things you want to do by channeling what you're going through and putting it towards being creative. Connection, call a trusted friend and now simply say, I need company right now. Reach out to 988 or your local hotline to talk it out with someone trained to help you. And if you can't talk, sit in public space where you feel less isolated and self soothing. Take a warm shower or bath. I know me, I would always take baths at the end of the day and just decompress. A warm bath definitely helps. I feel less stressed when I'm done because it's a nice warm bath. Hold an ice cube and splash cold water on your face. You can jolt your system out of crisis mode. Try progressive muscle relaxation, tense and release each part of your body from head to toe. Here's a reminder that suicide thoughts are not permanent. They rise and fall. Even they can, if they feel endless. You don't need to go through this alone. There's support 24/7. And I'm going to keep repeating this. Call or text 988 or the worldwide befrienders.org has international hotlines. Now, thank you guys for listening today. I hope I covered what I was trying to accomplish with this episode that is very near and dear to my heart. Suicide um prevention and awareness is definitely something that I'll always hold near and dear to me, and I'll always try to spread awareness regarding it. Now, check out my shop. It is It Gets Better igb.myshopify.com. 10% of proceeds from sales will benefit different mental health initiatives. Now, this brand is definitely my passion project. I was once someone struggling with suicide ideation, and I fight so hard to spread awareness and reduce stigma. And when it comes to mental health awareness and suicide awareness, I hope this episode helped. And I also actually I was reading one of the statistics, and it reminded me of a teacher that I had, and I want to give honorable mention to him. There was a teacher when I was in high school. His name was Mr. Egbert. He was everyone's favorite teacher. Everyone loved him. I didn't have him personally as a teacher, but I do remember I had a class in his classroom where I didn't get along with the people in there because they would just make fun of me and be mean to me. So I would always hate being in there. So I would always hang out with the teachers and adults while the other people on the other side of the room were busy doing their thing, making their jokes, saying mean things. Um, but I always remember I would always have conversations with him. He would always be so kind. Unfortunately, a few years ago, he took his own life, and it makes me so sad because he was such a loved person, and he always fought hard for suicide prevention. He was actually one of the teachers who was doing this whole initiative with suicide prevention and things like that, and it just makes me so sad. He was such a lovely man. I remember actually when I worked at Sue Leonard's, I was ringing up a customer, and I was like, "Oh, you look so familiar." And she was a teacher from West Babylon, and she actually worked with Mr. Egbert. And me and her had a moment where we looked at each other. I'm like, "Oh, you look familiar." And she goes, "Yeah, I was Mr. Egbert's I was a student teacher," and we just looked at each other as soon as she said who she was and who she was, who I would have known her from. And I'm like, "I can't." I'm like, "You just said Mr. Egbert." I'm like, "It is so sad." And we both sat there crying, and I was at work, and I was like, "Oh my God." I had a moment where I cried because we both cried. because we just know he was such a lovely man, and it's so sad to see people leave this earth that way, and it makes you it just so sad. May God rest his soul, and I wish he would have known how loved he was by his students. I wasn't even his student, and I'll always remember the kindness he showed me in the years that I was going to that school, and during a time where I wasn't necessarily the happiest student. And he was just such a lovely man, and God rest his soul. Now, if you or anyone know is if you or any excuse me, if you or anyone you know is struggling, just know that it does get better and there is help. Now, if you like I said, if you're struggling, text home to 741-741, the crisis text line, for a free confidential conversation with a trained counselor at any time of day. Text or call 988 or use the chat function at 988lifeline.org. The 988 continues to offer support to anyone who needs it, but no longer offers specialized LGBTQIA plus support. If you are looking for specialized support, you can contact the Trevor Project directly 24/7. Call 1-866-488-7386. I'll say that again. Call 1-866-488-7386 or text START to 678-678 or connect online to the trvr.org/get-help for the same free secure support as always, and find more crisis resources at the jedfoundation.org/crisis, and the new lifelines for support for the LGBTQIA plus given by Canada due to it being taken away is 1-877-330-6366. I'm gonna add this new resource to the end of all my episodes as well. I'm gonna add this. Call the NAMI helpline. It's 1-800-950-6264 or text NAMI NAMI to 62640. Thank you guys for listening. I'll see you guys next time. This too shall pass. Love you guys. Stay well. Bye bye. And always remember, it gets better.